Manx Radio's update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai and welcome along to Update on Manx Radio. It's 5 o'clock on Thursday the 24th of April. Let's have half an hour of the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up, a mammoth debate has been held in Tynwald over the Manx Care Mandate. We'll hear from our reporter who's been stationed down there over the last couple of days. Meanwhile, we hear all about government's new Child First policy. And are you ready to dodge, duck, dip, dive and dodge? All that and more coming up, plus the latest weather and sport for you, as well as what to watch out for on the roads this evening. Let us know your thoughts. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's take a look at the latest headlines with Simon Richardson. Fastamai, Simon.
Fastamai. Tynwald has rejected a motion calling for Manx Care's new mandate and operating plan to be thrown out. Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper warned the plans would lead to an unacceptable cuts to frontline services, but the Health Minister defended them as necessary reforms, and legal advice confirmed Tynwald can't force changes. Despite emotional speeches and several amendments, members ultimately backed the government's approach. Manx National Heritage has questioned the proposal to place a statue of King Orry on a plinth next to Tynwald Hill. It says it would first need evaluation of the potential risks and impact. The organisation also questioned the accuracy of media reports on what it terms a semi-legendary figure. Bus Vannin is advising people not to use its bus shelter at Janet's Corner in Castletown after it was vandalised overnight. The company has apologised for any inconvenience caused, saying its contractor will be attending at the earliest opportunity to resolve the situation. In international news, the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry claims the number of people killed in an overnight Russian airstrike on Kyiv has risen to 12. Donald Trump urged Vladimir Putin to stop, just a day after accusing Ukraine's leader of prolonging the killing and being the barrier to peace. Meanwhile, the EU says it plans to present a roadmap on how it intends to phase out all imports of Russian fossil fuels over the next 2 weeks. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's told an energy summit in London that regulation is essential. More than 500,000 shoplifting offences have been recorded in England and Wales for the first time. Office for National Statistics figures show there were 516,971 crimes last year. That's up 20% on 2023. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with more news at 6 o'clock.
Gurmayed. Thank you, Simon. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Remaining dry with clear skies this evening, then turning cloudier overnight. Light to moderate southeast winds becoming moderate to fresh by the end of the night, and with minimum temperatures of 7 degrees. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with the chance of some patchy light rain at times, especially later in the day. Fresh southeast winds easing to become moderate with best temperatures around 12 degrees. A dull and damp start on Saturday with light rain and drizzle during the morning, then becoming dry later in the day with sunshine developing in places. However, coastal mist is likely in some areas too, with light to moderate southerly winds. Sunday will then be rather breezy with some light patchy rain for a time. Sunset tonight at 8:37, sunrise tomorrow morning at 5 minutes to 6.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshore Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tynwald estate, view philshorevehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's 5:05. The future direction of healthcare on the Isle of Man sparked a passionate and wide-ranging debate in Tynwald this week. A motion from Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper challenged the new mandate and operating plan for Manx Care, warning they would lead to unacceptable reductions in frontline services. Christian Jones has been stationed down in Tynwald for the past few days. Long couple of days, Christian, I suppose. But just talk to us about what this motion is all about then.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty interesting, Tynwald, which, as you say, went into a third day. Fairly rare that happens. But with regards to this motion, Laurie Hooper was essentially trying to get Tynwald to reject both the mandate and the operating plan. Those are two key documents that guide how healthcare will be delivered. He argued that the plans were inadequate and would cut vital services, shift too much towards private healthcare, and fail to fully implement independent inspection recommendations. He wanted them rewritten and brought them back to Tynwald for approval in July.
And we heard from a lot of members over the course of that debate, didn't we?
Yes, nearly every corner of Tynwald had something to say, and emotions ran high at times. Some members spoke of a system under huge pressure, concerns about vulnerable groups like those needing autism support or respite care, and a feeling that Manx Care isn't being properly held to account. Others, including the Health Minister, Claire Christian, actually defended the mandate, saying it's about modernising services, not cutting them, and doing what's right for the island in the long term.
Wasn't there also a legal angle to this?
Yeah, there was, and it was actually a key moment. The Attorney General made it clear that under the Manx Care Act, Tynwald actually can't enforce changes to the mandate or the operating plan. Only the Department of Health and Social Care can actually revise the mandate, and only Manx Care can amend its operating plan, and even then only in specific circumstances. So while the debate allowed members to express strong views, any motion passed would have actually had no legal effect. But what it is important to note is that that's the same for any motion. None of them are actually legally binding. It's effectively just an expression of interest that gives Tynwald's position on a particular issue. Now that the respective departments, the respective departments could choose to ignore them, that's for them to decide. Of course, that would draw strong criticism in response, though.
And a few amendments too.
Yes. Right, where do we start with this? Julie Edge called for a full audit of Manx Care by the Tynwald Auditor General. Kate Brennan put forward a proposal for hospice and third sector providers to have their funding reviewed more formally. We also had one from David Ashford, which was an amendment to Kate Brennan's amendment. I think I'll have to leave it there because honestly, it made my brain hurt trying to make sense of all of this. But the important thing here is that there were modifications to it. The Health Minister also tabled an attempt to effectively remove everything that Laurie Hooper sought to challenge. Those were debated, but ultimately the focus remained on Laurie Hooper's original motion. That whole debate lasted more than 10 hours. Very unusual for that to happen too.
Lots to remember and lots to recap. We can appreciate that. So, Christian, just rounding up, what was the final result?
In the end, what Laurie Hooper wanted to do was defeated, and instead most members chose to side with the Health Minister and the current mandate. But something that Laurie Hooper said was this was not a debate of action, but one of conscience. He knew from the get-go that he wasn't going to win this, in part due to a government automatic voting majority, but that's of a discussion for another time. While there was broad agreement that parts of the health system need urgent attention, the majority view was that this was the structure we have and now it's about making it work. But it's clear that this debate has laid down a marker. There are deep concerns about funding, delivery and accountability, and ultimately calls for further scrutiny aren't going to be going away anytime soon.
And you can find a comprehensive report covering all of that debate over on manxradio.com. Christian Jones, Gromayed, thank you. It's 9 minutes past 5. A new child first policy is being drafted by government to ensure the welfare and best interests of children are consistently taken into account when preparing public policies and services. As part of the process, the views of children are being sought during a month of engagement with children's groups and service providers. Minister for the Cabinet Office, David Ashford, has been talking to Simon Richardson.
The Child First policy has been being worked on for quite a number of years now. And the point is to make it, when government considers policies, a more inclusive and supportive environment for our young residents. It's about engaging with young people, making sure that their voices are heard, and that actually when government is considering policies, we are actually putting children at the centre of that.
Could people be forgiven for thinking maybe that this type of approach would have already been at the forefront of government policy as a matter of course?
Like other jurisdictions, we've been looking at how we best embed that across government. So there is a lot of work to be done in this area, and it's making sure that we recognise that children's views and needs do actually differ from adults. And it's about prioritising opportunities to actually listen to children's voices and ensure that their voices are embedded in everything that we do.
How will it be effectively enforced or policed, if you like?
So it will become a consideration for any policies that actually come forward from government. So that would be, as you say, pan-government across the whole government estate. So this will become one of those considerations, making sure that the Child First policy actually sits across any policy that we actually bring forward.
And when will these changes come into force?
So at the moment, the important thing is we're going out and we're seeking children's voices, because obviously if you're going to do a Child First policy, the crucial part is engagement with children. So there is various forms of engagement in terms of that. There's engagement via the Department for Education, Sport and Culture and their youth service in the schools. There's the Tynwald Youth Select Committee. There's the Voices in Participation Council as well. There's the Children's Centre and Isle Play, all of which are being engaged in this process, and those views will then inform what the final policy looks like.
Minister for the Cabinet Office, David Ashford, speaking to Simon Richardson there about a new Child First policy being drafted by government. Now, a complaint has been lodged against two companies owned by Manx Utilities for allegations of anti-competitive behaviour. The Communications and Utilities Regulatory Authority has published an information notice in respect of Elan Communications Limited and Manx Cable Company Limited. Sean Cowper reports.
Both are subsidiaries of Manx Utilities, a statutory board of the Isle of Man Government. Elan Communications Limited, which was wound up at the end of 2024, provided telecommunications services to internet businesses and internet service providers on a wholesale basis. Manx Cable Company Limited, meanwhile, is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the electrical interconnector subsea cable between the Isle of Man and the UK. The complaint comes from Blue Wave Communications Limited. According to Cura, Blue Wave alleges that Elan and the Manx Cable Company may be engaging in a refusal to supply by restricting access to the subsea fibre optic communications cable. Cura says it will investigate the claims made in the complaint, but adds it's important to point out at this stage it's not possible to come to any preliminary determinations. The undertakings, that's Elan and Manx Cable Company, have been advised of the complaint and the pending investigation.
Sean Cowper with that report. Well, in a statement to Manx Radio, Manx Utilities says Elan Communications Limited, ECL, and Manx Cable Company Limited, MCC, subsidiary companies of Manx Utilities, are cooperating with an investigation by Cura regarding an allegation of anti-competitive behaviour. ECL is licensed by Cura and has operated in the wholesale telecommunications market on the Isle of Man since 2007, it says. While MCC is not a licensed telecommunications operator but owns the interconnector assets related to this inquiry. It goes on to say the investigation is part of Cura's designated oversight activities, and both companies are fully committed to transparency and compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. Both companies welcome the opportunity to discuss this matter with Cura to ensure that all relevant information is provided in a timely manner. ECL and MCC, it says, are confident that in fully cooperating with the investigation, they will demonstrate that they are compliant with the relevant laws and regulations, and that the complaint is without merit. ECL and MCC, it says, remain dedicated to maintaining the highest standards of integrity, corporate governance and accountability.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Approaching 5:15 now, and more opportunities for feedback on 20 mph speed limits in residential areas across the island have been announced by the Infrastructure Minister. Michelle Hayward has released a timeline for the implementation of the scheme, as Amy Griffiths reports.
Taking to social media, Dr Hayward recognised the initial 2-week period for responses on the plans was too short. She also admitted that trying to consider all the proposed changes simultaneously for the whole island caused confusion. Now the department's planning to consult in stages, starting with towns and villages in the north, which will include before and after maps for each location. The maps will be shared on the DOI website and put on display in the nearest suitable location and also in the sea terminal. The consultation period will be at least 6 weeks, and during each one, the relevant Board of Commissioners will be visited to make sure their views are heard. While the consultations won't stop the implementation of the 20-mile-an-hour zones, residents will be able to give feedback on which specific roads they think should or shouldn't be involved in the scheme. Government's previously been criticised for not bringing a report to Tynwald with recommendations on how the scheme should be implemented, a requirement that had originally been due by March 2021. Last month, Dr Hayward thanked MHKs for bringing the oversight to her attention and has now published that plan. Dating back to the original development of an active travel strategy in May 2018, it reflects on the work that's already been done and what's left to do. By the spring of this year, the department has committed to providing current and proposed speed limit maps for each town and village in the Douglas and Onken area, with the hope of implementing the speed limits by the summer. Next on the list will be the north of the island, with 20-mile-an-hour zones planned to be introduced by the autumn of this year. Following that, central and western locations are due to see the limits introduced by spring 2026, with the south of the island following suit in the summer. The implementation plan will be brought before next month's sitting of Tynwald, and you can see the timeline in full on our website, manxradio.com.
Amy Griffiths.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, let's head on over to the roads, and for the Manx Classic Hill Climbs event, the Slough is currently closed. It's due to reopen at past. The Hill Climbs event continues for the next couple of days, which means tomorrow the TT course will be closed between Belig Bridge and Cronkervoddy Crossroads from 9 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. And on Saturday, the mountain road will be closed from Barrule Park in Ramsey to a point just north of the Victory Cafe entrance at the Bungalow from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening. Elsewhere in Ramsey, temporary lights at the Bowring Road/Jerby Road junction, 24 hours a day for gas main work. Near Mackle, temporary lights on the Coast Road at Corony for work on the manhole covers there. And in Santon, until the 18th of May, temporary lights on the new Castletown Road just south of Mount Murray for resurfacing work. If you're travelling on or off island, let's head over to the airport, and a slight delay on the 5:15 EasyJet flight to Manchester. That delayed until 5:45. We'll keep an eye on that one. And the 6 o'clock Liverpool flight, this is Logan Air, delayed by 20 minutes so far. On the sailings, Manxman left Heysham at 2:20 and is due into Douglas at 6 o'clock. Likewise, Manannan left Douglas just after 3 o'clock and is expected to arrive in Liverpool in just over half an hour's time.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with Quayside. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
18 minutes past 5 now. Could you and your friends or colleagues be ready to take on a Dodgeball Challenge? A new community sporting event is being launched by Isle Listen as part of Mental Health Awareness Week in May. The inaugural Isle of Man Dodgeball Championship will take place on the 16th of May in the National Sports Centre's main hall, and it's open to teams of 6 to 9 players. I've been speaking with Isle Listen's Stephen Downward and Juan Christian, alongside Mikey Haslett from Active Souls.
Taking place in Mental Health Awareness Week, the theme this year is community, and we felt that this is a good, inclusive event to get the community together to have fun. What we often see at our Listen is a lot of young people who need support with their mental health. And, you know, from being involved with Active Soul sessions with Mikey and his team, one of the things we found is it's fun, we have a laugh and a joke, and, you know, people can sort of take part to be competitive or just have some fun, great for team building and stuff like that. We were also looking for an event that we could hold each year that can grow, and we felt this one would be a good space to fill.
Mikey, tell us about Active Souls then and the role that they're playing in all this.
Our mission is very much around getting people involved in play, and we work across 3 pillars of getting people moving, making sure they have fun, making sure they're socialising and trying to build communities along the way. So it kind of sits nicely with what I'll Listen are trying to achieve as well. And it's been phenomenal working with Steve and Juin to get this off the ground. And I'm quite excited to work alongside another team as well, because what it's allowed us to do is go that step further to make sure that it's not just a dodgeball event, but it's an event that I think everybody that's involved will remember.
Like Steve says, you get out, you do a bit of activity. Like Mikey said, everyone's going to come, they're going to have fun, they're going to feel great, and it may encourage people to do a bit more exercise, because there's all sorts of ways that we can improve our mental health. Our Listen, we're very much a proactive organisation, so as much as we're there to help kids that have issues going on at school, we want to help the community as well, and it's a great profile raiser for the charity too.
You can find all those details, including how to enter, over at manxradio.com. Now, 2025 will be a new chapter for Manx road racer Nathan Harrison, who will compete for official Honda satellite team H&H motorcycles at the TT and Northwest 200. Having left the Honda Racing UK lineup after the last campaign, what's he hoping for this season? He spoke to Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard.
The idea behind it really is to take the pressure off me. I missed 2023 TT. I crashed at the Northwest 200. I did have other things going on, obviously at home anyway, so I think everything was going to happen for a reason then. And then last year I ended up crashing in Spain, and it's no secret now, I definitely wasn't fit at TT last year. I was looking at pictures on my phone from a year ago today, and I was thinking, how did I do the Northwest 200, which is in less than 2 weeks' time, in the state that I was in? But obviously I got through it. I still had a good result. Top 10 in the senior, you can't knock, especially not fully fit. So the kind of idea behind it is to kind of take the pressure away from me, and with their support, so obviously I'm running under the H&H Motorcycles banner as an official Honda satellite team, so I'm still getting their support. They're still supplying me with the thousands. We have bought our own 600, but I get the best of both worlds. So obviously I've still got the support there, but without the pressure, and I can just go and basically use it as like a rebuilding year and get back to where I was, no injuries, and have a successful year hopefully, and just building on what I've done already. My plan is just to go out, enjoy myself. And obviously I want to build on that. So if I can make the next step, being realistic, am I going to be on the podium? Probably not. And that's just being realistic. But if I can make that next step and go with the likes of James Hilliard, John McGuinness, Jamie Coward, if I can make that next step to the next group, I think that's a reasonable ask. Anything can happen on the day. You have breakdowns, you have retirements, you have pit stop issues. So the TT is a thing that's in a game of its own. So if we're somewhere nearabouts in the race and I can improve on what I've done in the past, I'll be happy.
Naturally, you've got to focus on the Northwest and the TT. Could we see at the likes of the Southern 100 or maybe on a classic machine over at the Manx Grand Prix / Classic TT, for example?
Yes, definitely. I'll definitely be back down the Southern 100. I will be at the Classic TT. I'm just confirming a couple of bikes and everything yet, so I better not say too much on that one, but I will be back at the Classic TT and Manx Grand Prix. Obviously, that's where it all started for me.
Great to hear from Manx road racer Nathan Harrison there, speaking to Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard. Now, in other sporting news, Ramsey Rugby Club has withdrawn from the remainder of this year's Manx Cup and Manx Plate competitions. The northern side issued a statement last night saying the decision is driven by significant concerns regarding player safety. Rob Pritchard reports.
The announcement was made before Ramsey's eventual 29-27 Manx Cup semi-final win over Vagabonds at Morag Park on Wednesday evening. The club says this decision was being made regardless of yesterday's result, adding it hopes this move will serve as a catalyst aimed at addressing what it calls fundamental issues of trust and safety in the domestic game. In the statement, Ramsey Rugby Club says whilst it understands the challenges posed by having a smaller pool of teams on the island, the current system allows players consistently competing at a higher level to face players with considerably less experience and exposure to that playing standard. The club believes withdrawing is a necessary step to underscore the seriousness of its concerns and to protect its players from potential injury. However, Ramsey Rugby Club adds it remains committed to Manx Rugby and aspires to see what it terms improvements to see them compete in the Manx Cup again for the future. Organisers of the Manx Cup and Manx Plate are now expected to discuss possible ways forward for the finals of both tournaments next weekend. The Manx Executive Committee, which handles rugby business on the Isle of Man on behalf of Cheshire RFU, has been contacted for comment.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
just because we can never get too much Rob Pritchard, here he is with other news from the world of sport. Faster my Rob.
Yes, faster my Lewis. Well, starting with football, and the Canada Life Combination 1 title race will go down to the final day after current leaders Onchan failed to clinch the title during last night's fixtures. Needing a victory, they were held to a 3-3 draw at St John's United, meaning just 3 points separate Onchan at the top and Ramsey in second, who have a better goal difference. Elsewhere last night, Ramsey, the defending champions, were comfortable 7-1 winners at home to Moran. Laxey also came out 5-3 winners and an 8-goal thriller at home to Foxdale. There were also 3 games in Ardern and Drug Unlimited Division 2 on Wednesday evening. Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys and Douglas High School Old Boys played out a 2-2 draw. Douglas Athletic were 4-2 winners away at Governors Athletic, and Pulrose United were 5-1 victors at Braddon. The football continues this evening with the quarter-finals of this year's Cowell Cup competition for under-21 sides, with games kicking off at 6:15pm. Staying with football, and actually some breaking news in the last 30 minutes, the Isle of Man men's national team for this year's Island Games in Orkney has been announced. 20 players, including player manager Chris Bass Jr., will contest this summer's event, which is being held from the 12th to the 18th of July. So that squad is as follows. Player manager Chris Bass Jr., and then we have Mark Blair, Sammy Gelling, James Collister, Sean Doyle, Carl Clark, Stuart Smith, Frank Jones, Matthew Woods, Daniel Pickering, Jay Gandy, Jean Marquez, Thomas Brown, Joe Berquist, Jason Charmer, Lee Gale, Daniel Simpson, Morgan Naylor, Harry Best and Connor Clark. Well, the Ireland men's team had a disappointing campaign at the last Ireland Games in Guernsey in 2023, finishing 9th, having entered the tournament as defending champions. And finally, in motorsport, TT competitor Mike Brown will team up with the Boyce Precision Engineering Russell Racing team again at this year's event. The Irishman will campaign the squad's Yamaha YZF-R6 machine across both Supersport races on the Snæfell Mountain course. And alongside KMR, the crew and Brown will also be contesting the Super Twin category, utilising Kawasaki power. Well, the rider himself admits frustration at his TT results last year, but is hopeful of getting more out of the machinery in 2025. Well, formed in 2022, Russell Racing made its TT debut that year with 16-time TT winner Ian Hutchinson, who managed 10th and 13th place finishes in the Supersport class. And last year, the crew ran 2 riders, with Brown joined by double British Superbike champion Josh Brooks.
Rob Pritchard, Guru Mayed. That's it for Update tonight. Shaq Lair is up next and Chris Kinley is here at 6 with Greatest Hits. And keep an ear out tonight for the results of the local authority elections, of course. Remember, you can listen back to tonight's programme as a podcast available shortly over at manxradio.com. Whatever you're up to, have a good evening. Update will be back at the same time tomorrow.